Hi, today I'm going to be taking a look at Erica Synth's rather marvellous new black eurorack sequencer, and I've been digging into this for a few weeks now and I'm quite amazed by how much it does without ever feeling overcomplicated or cumbersome. The interface is really easy to use and you can pretty much do anything you want without referring to the manual once you know how it works. But before we start, I'll just play a few seconds of something I put together with the black sequencer sequencing the black wavetable VCO from Erica Synths, a mutable Platts clone and the Moog Mother 32. And I was looking at doing some blips and blops and some weird sort of electro thing, and then I had a little play with an ambient drone, but as I was playing with the sequencer it came across so complex that I could actually put a whole track together. So I thought I'd do a sort of a more chilled out sort of Cafe Del Mar style Ibiza sort of laid back track, really just because as I was playing with it I was thinking, oh, I could do this, I can do that. So I'll play that first and I'll go through at the end of this, after I've described all the functions, how I put that together so that it makes a bit more sense. If I try to show you now, it probably won't make any sense to you. So here we go. So yeah, quite complex, and that was only using 3 tracks, but what I really love about this are the amount of modulation capabilities where you can assign envelopes, triggers, LFOs, additional CVs to each track, effectively giving you your 4 main oscillator tracks plus say 4 independent rhythm tracks by assigning separate triggers to each of the tracks on the modulation bus. So you could have a kick, a snare, a clap and a hi-hat all playing separately to each of your 4 oscillator tracks, or it could allow you to use 4 oscillators without needing 4 separate envelope modules, for example, because you can assign an AD or an ASR envelope to every step, so separate envelope on every step, or you can assign an ADSR envelope across the track. It's all built into this, and same with LFOs. So you can independently set the length of each track, repeat each step up to 8 times, have up to 8 ratchets per step, and even place arpeggios on those ratchets. So with 64 steps, each repeating up to 8 times with 8 ratchets on each, you've got a fair amount to be playing with. And then you can put it all in a song that can contain 16 different patterns, each up to 64 patterns long, which at 128 or 120 BPM is 8.5 minutes long song, which isn't bad. But let's start off then by taking a look at the interface. Everything is easily accessible from these 16 knobs. We've got 16 steps, 4 pages for the 16 steps. Let's go into here. So that's bar 1, bar 2, bar 3 and bar 4 for your 64 steps. Continue gates on and off really simply, and you can see the lights coming on and off, and you can see these highlighting here. If we go to gate, really obvious. Go to CV, twist that, change your values. Got that unquantized at the minute, you can quantize them. And the knobs are really nice and clicky, so they land on values rather than having to sort of try and tune them in, which is really handy for your workflow. And whatever you twist, it appears on screen. As you can see here, there's the gate length, there's the number of ratchets per step, each of the different steps. Let's turn those down, otherwise it'll all go a bit crazy later on. Gate length, oops, go to gate length. And it means that you know exactly what you've tweaked. You know, sometimes you twist the knob and you're in a different mode. On this, it shows you exactly what you've done, which is really handy. Screen is lovely, high def. I don't know if it's showing up that well on the camera. The contrast never really works very well on the camera, but you know, it's a great little thing. To the right of the screen, we've got these 4 buttons that show you which track you're working on. Channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. And here's the main data knob over here. The buttons along the top 2 rows pick the functions, and we have a shift for secondary functions as well. So here we've got CV and glide. Here we've got gate and probability. We've got ratchet and repeat, shuffle and micro timing, modulation and ARP. You've got mute and solo. Little bit difficult to read the secondary functions actually, but could be a little bit clearer. Bottom row has got setup, it's got shift, you move between the bars using these cursor keys here, and you've got play, stop and record. Along the top we've got 3 rows of CV outputs and inputs. Just take these out here, I don't know if you can see that. We've got, let's take all of this out for now. We've got CV, we've got gate, and we've got modulation for each of the 4 tracks. And we've got some CV and gate in, we've got MIDI in, MIDI out, clock in, etc. I think that's enough on the spec, so let's jump straight in and start going through each of the functions one by one, shall we? Once you first plug this in, your memory card's going to have nothing on it, so you're not going to have to clear any patterns. But generally, if you did want to clear a pattern, let's just load one that I don't mind clearing. Let's go to pattern 15. I know I've got nothing in this, and it's just really simple. Clear. In pattern mode, clear, pattern 15. Press 15 to delete, and that's it. And clear is really quite handy on this. You can clear just the CV, so you clear the CV on channel 4, on 15, or clear the gates, clear the ratchets, clear the shuffle. You understand how that works now. So let's go and sort of make a track, shall we? So let's go back to this 15 here. So maybe we turn on, let's just get rid of all these cables for now. First thing you might want to do is quantize the track so that you're definitely on a note or on a particular scale. So we go to shift and quantize, and then we go, we're on C at the minute, and we can change it round to what we got here. We've got nothing, so it'll just do any. Chromatic, major, minor, and you can see there the ones that sort of grayed out are the ones that you can play. Major, penta, whole tone, major blues, minor blues. So there's a few there, and you can create your own as well. And if you're in none and you go to the CV, you can see we're changing by a cent. So we don't want to do that because we'd be here forever trying to tune anything. So let's go into shift, quantize, and let's put it onto chromatic. Okay, so we're going to C now, CV, we're changing it by note. Okay, so if we click it on, we're on. If we go to gate, we've then got some more gate options, but we'll stick on CV for now. So let's put it back onto a C, put that one onto a C, that's a C3, C3, C3. And you notice they're all coming on at C3, and you can set that initial value in your setup. So we go to setup, defaults, CV 3, C3 I should say, gate 50, stay off. So they're normally off when I go to a new track. So you can see here by clicking them, as I say, that's turned it on and off. Let's go to direction and range then, and we can see it's 16 steps long. We can change that to whatever we want. To make it into 2 bars, we'll go to next page down, 16, there we go, 32 or 64. Let's go back into page 1. Let's just play that. So there you go, a little basic pattern. Next function on this first key is glide. And if we go shift and glide and change this, we've got a master glide. Or we can go into individual steps and we can change the glide on them. So that's the glide on 1, the glide on 2, but there's nothing on 3, so let's put something on 3. Back to CV, turn that on, turn that up, shall we? C4, so. So button 1 is basically all about tuning. Button 2, we have a different gate length per step. It's set at 50 as a default. Again, we go to setup, go to defaults, see there, that's set at 50. Come back into gate, so. with gate on 100, it ties to the next step. Or to tie a number of steps together, you can press the first and the last that you want to tie. So if we put those all on the same note, so again, another nice touch. It means you can get nice long notes. And we undo that just by clicking on any one of those. Let's take this back down to 50 then, shall we? And now the second parameter we've got on this button is probability. And we've got various types of probability here. So we've got 100% chance down to 10% chance, and then we've got a 1 in 8, or a 1 in 7, or a 1 in 6, or a 1 in 5 probability of it happening. So all sorts of different ways of looking at that. So let's turn a few of these to a half is different to a 50% because half means it'll play 1 in every 2 bars. 50% means it's got a 50% chance of playing every bar. So it could play every bar if you play 4 bars, whereas 1 in 2 will definitely only play 2 of those 4 bars. I'm not making myself very clear, but hopefully it makes sense to you. Next button is ratchet and repeat. So let's have 4 on step 1. Let's just make this a shorter pattern, shall we? Just make it 4 long. Shift and ratchet get us to the repeat menu, and you can see here I've just got a really simple 4-step pattern. A C followed by 3 Ds. So in repeat, let's repeat the first step 4 times. Repeat it 8 times. So again, obviously really flexible, but if we push the button there, we now get not 8 separate steps, but 1 step that's 8 steps long, which is another really nice touch. Let's add 4 steps to this one, and let's change it to an E or a D sharp or an I. Let's go a bit higher, let's go all the way to a G. So definitely not your standard repeat function. So moving on then to shuffle. If we look at shuffle, we've got the percentage shuffle we can use, and at the bottom here we can see like 0 plus 0 plus. Hopefully that's showing up on the camera, and that's basically selecting, using these 4 knobs, which of the steps will shuffle. So that repeats across all 16 steps. So in this case we've got them all ticked, as it were, and they're all moving, or we can just pick certain ones to move. So let's have a listen on this. So again, really nice and flexible, and the secondary function on this is the micro timing. And using this, we can change the timing of each step. Let's take those shuffles off, shall we? That's a 0, so. So there you go, lovely and completely out of time. And next up is my favourite button of the whole lot, and that's the modulation button. If you go to modulation, we get these sort of stepped modulations for CVs coming out of these 4 different CV outs here, 1 for each track, as I say. So we can change it for every step. There we go. But if we go to setup modulation, we can have CV, CV note, so you're sending out the note information, and then go to setup again. We've got decay envelope, so if we go back in, we can have a different decay envelope for each of the steps. So with different decay envelopes, let's take the modulation out and let's put it into the filter envelope. And we've also got an ASR envelope, which is slightly different in that it will hold on till the end of the gate. So if we play these now. So again, a different envelope on every step, and then we've got the ADSR envelope. So shift modulation ADSR envelope, and these top 4 knobs here control the ADSR envelope. And that acts over all the steps in the track. So I'm moving over to the next, we get LFO. And in LFO, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 different parameters we can change with the 4 top knobs. So we've got the frequency from 0.2 Hz to 20 Hz, and that can be synced with knob 4. So we go from 1/16 to 8 times the speed. And we've got shapes, we've got a sine, got a triangle, saw, ramp, and a square, and then we can change the actual amount of voltage being sent from it. So let's try that with a cutoff. Let's put this in here. Amazing. So an LFO in this as well, and I do use that in that intro track. So I think you'll agree that's really flexible, isn't it? Let's try another one, LFO, step LFO, and on this we have a different LFO per step. Let's look at step 1, shall we? Looks like is that a sine, triangle, sawtooth, and a ramp and a square. So So again, something nice and interesting, and to get that with different modules, God knows how many different modules you'd need and how you'd go about doing it. So it's nice and refreshing that it's giving you sort of some things that you can't just set up naturally with other bits and bobs. And finally, we've got trigger, and trigger basically is a trigger, which means, as I said in the intro, you could have 4 separate triggers for 4 separate drum sounds that are being triggered completely independently to your gates. So although it's a 4-track sequencer, you could have feasibly 4 oscillators and 4 different drum tracks, or 8 different drum tracks. Also on mod, we have shift and mod, and we get arpeggios, and on this we can set different types of arpeggios. So we've got semitone, whole tones, black notes, major, minor, minor 7th, major 9th, octave. It'd be nice if it held it on a little bit longer while I read it. Only of use while you're making a demo, but there you go. Let's have a look at that. We need to have a ratchet on to do that, so we go to ratchet, we'll put, let's put 4 on, number 1 and number 3, so just slow that down. And let's just change the range to just the first 4 steps. Again, a nice little touch there. And if you're playing something that slow, you can get an awful lot. Again, so eight notes per arpeggio on 64 steps. You get the gist. It goes on and on. Next up is direction and range. We've already seen this. All the things we can do is forward, backwards, and random and various other things there. You can change the range using the knob or just by pressing the button, and you change from, this is page 1, change to page 2 using the bar function. So now I'm on bar 4, so I'm adjusting just within bar 4, and I go up to bar 3 and I'm just in within bar 3. Mute is next up, and there we've got pretty stands to reason. 4 channels playing, mute the different channels. The secondary function on mute is solo, so shift and mute, and we can just solo which of them, which is a great performance tool. So onto the second row now. We've got pattern, which just selects which pattern you're playing. And in pattern mode, we can also link patterns together, a bit like making a song, but it doesn't save it. So just put a few patterns together just to demonstrate that. So pattern 1. So if we wanted to play pattern 1 once, pattern 2 twice, then pattern 1 once, then pattern 3 3 times, we go hold pattern, press 1, then 2 twice, then 1, then 3. And after you've saved every pattern, so let's just create a new one just really quickly. So if we go to pattern number 4, there's nothing in there. So just create the pattern. Save it. Otherwise, you could lose it. So let's go to pattern 2. Back to pattern 4. It's gone. So make sure you save your patterns after you've created them. So let's just do one again. So TV. There we go. Shift and this to save. So then we go back to pattern 1. And pattern 4 is still there. And I had scratched my head a few times wondering where my patterns had gone, and it was just because I hadn't saved them. So top tip for you. So then you've got banks and songs on the next button. So your bank, you've got 16 banks on your SD card, and in those 16 banks you've got 16 different songs. I'm going through the oh, I'm actually starting to program a song there. So we go back into the bank, we're on bank 1, and we can see there we've got 13 patterns programmed in bank 1 and nothing in any of the others. And then we go to songs, and we can see in song 1 I'm using 6 patterns, in song 2 I'm not using anything. But let's take a look at just programming something in song mode, shall we? So we'll press 2, and now I'm in programming mode, and I can just start to pick the different patterns that I want to use. If I want to use it a few times, it's that simple. And it's really simple to edit as well. We just go to whichever bar we want to, and then we just change the pattern that we want to put in there, or we use these two keys here to change either the pattern number or the number of repeats. Then next up is copy and paste, and these are really, really simple functions to use. So many times I'm using something and I find it really difficult to remember what the copy and paste functions are and how it works. This is really good. So if I wanted to copy, for example, the CVs on this, say the first 8, hold the first one, hold the 8th one, I've copied that across. Okay, and to paste it, let's go to bar 2 and let's paste it from step 1. There we go. Paste it again from step 8, shall we? Or paste it again from step 12, so you can see what it's doing there. So it's really, really simple to do that. If we want to copy a pattern, we just go into pattern mode. So copy pattern 4, so copy 4, pattern 4 copied, paste it to 5. There we go. So listen to 4. Now listen to 5. There you go. As I say, really simple. Next up, scale. So if we go to scale, we can see sort of speed. And then we've got the BPM. So half speed. And then also, and this is quite important, is the master length is 16. So when you saw me repeating patterns in the song mode, it was repeating per bar, per 16 steps. So for a 4-bar loop, you would have to say it repeats the master length 4 times. So if I've got a 64 step pattern, that 64 step pattern, say it's on pattern 10, I have to press pattern 10 and say I want to play that 4 times in order to get your whole 64. And if you only play it once, you only get the master length, which is 16. So you can set that to 64 and then you just play it once. Well, now we've got quantize. So we saw quantize earlier, so we can actually create our own by pushing the data encoder. So we can create our own microtonal scale or whatever sort of scale we want. You can't actually save that at the moment. That's going to be in a future update, but it does save what you've done in your pattern. So if you saved it with your scale, it doesn't then change it back to C major next time you come to use it. And then we have the magic button. And if we play this pattern, I've got nothing in there. We press magic and we press gate. It's randomized the gate. And let's magic the CV. But you think, well, that's sort of really sort of low notes and really high notes. We can go in and we can set up on the magic everything that we want it to do. So we've got minimum and maximums, and we go here. So CV, we've got between C0 and C10. Then the glide between 0 and 10, gate between 0 and 100, etc, etc. So we can go in and we can sort of fine tune the magic, which is a really nice thing to be able to do. And finally, we come to the setup page. So we've got info, display, general. So all your general settings here. So we've got the version, firmware version, display. We can go in and just adjust the contrast and stuff. I've got it on 0 at the minute because the cameras find it really difficult to pick these things up once you turn the contrast up. So that should be better. And then you just use these knobs here to navigate stuff and change different parameters. We've even got a screensaver, like a spaceship flying through the stars. So back to setup again. General settings, bar follow, master reset. Oops, click on it. So these are the defaults we saw earlier, the CV, gate and the state. Calibration, MIDI, that's not set up yet, that's coming out in version 2. Then you've got clock, internal or external or via MIDI. And finally, we've got the input and output menu. And if we go into that, we've got the clock output can be adjusted from 1 to 3 to 4 PPQ, which is quite handy. So I can use this as the master for my analog rhythm, or I can use the analog rhythm as a master for this. Change the PPQ because the analog rhythm doesn't accept 4 and it was playing at half speed. So great that you can change that. And I've had absolutely no problem syncing it either way. It's been absolutely rock solid. Setting the clock to internal, and I'm sending the MIDI clock out to the analog rhythm, and I'm doing that via the Erica Synths MIDI clock. So let's start playing this. all working exactly as you'd expect it to. Let's try that the other way around now. Let's bring the clock in from the analog rhythm. Let's do a bit of switching over. Go to set up the clock, external. Okay, then let's go back to that track I made at the start, and I'll just show you how I put that together. So we've got the 4 tracks here. If we go to mute, let's mute these 3. Also, as you now know, you can press that for solo, shift and mute, and we'll solo 1. So on this, we've got the volts per octave going to the black wavetable VCO. I'm playing just the sub on that, the transistor sub. It's a beautiful sounding tone. Then the gates go into the black envelope generator from America Synths as well, and that's controlling the quad VCA. But I've also got an envelope coming out of the modulation bus here, and that's going direct to the filter. So if we go into modulation here, we can see channel 1. We've got an ADSR playing the filter. So if we play that again. So that's really handy. As I said earlier, you don't need 4 separate envelope generator modules for 4 separate tracks because you've got them built into this. So let's move over to channel 2 then. What do we have playing there? And that's playing the mutable Platts clone, the Beehive by Jack plug that is. And what I've got here, again, I'm using an envelope generator on the modulation bus. If we press, there we go. So and I'm also modulating the morph function of the module using an LFO, and that LFO is on channel 3. So we go to channel 3, there we go, we've got the LFO. And I'm just using it to give a sort of nice gentle sort of movement through the tone. Just takes it away from being a straight stab. And then the final one we have on this is the Mother 32, and because this is playing on the same gates as channel 1, I'm using the same envelope generator for that, so they're both being modulated in the quad VCA by the same envelope generator. So I've got to put one on, or just turn it down on the quad VCA. So this is just the Mother 32 on its own. And then I'm just manually adjusting the cut off the resonance and the decay on that to play around with it a little bit. But on this we've got 3 channels of CV, 3 channels of gate, and 3 channels of modulation. So still got room for more. But I just need to buy more modules. And the song's being built here. You can see we go into the song mode, and there's the song. Really simple to set up. So, what are my final thoughts on this? Well, I've got to say I'm massively impressed, if you haven't been able to tell that already, by the black sequencer. I think the user interface is spectacularly easy to use for the amount of stuff that's in there. Once you've sort of took a brief look at the manual, you understand the sort of menu system and how you sort of navigate your way around it using these 2 buttons at the top here, or the bar cursor buttons at the bottom, or this little knob here. That's sort of all you need to know. You'll be able to find your way around it, absolutely no problem. Next to it on the board here, I've got the Renee by Make Noise, and that's a fabulous little sequencer as well. And it's really flexible, but every time I come to use it, because I don't use it all the time, I've got to sort of refresh myself, and I'm on YouTube or I'm getting the manual out. If you use it every day, fine, but if you don't, it's quite complex. With this, I think I could come back to this after a month or 2 months or 6 months or a year and I'd still be able to use it. I think that's really important. I've got the Qubit here as well, the sequencer. I've been trying to find the best sequencer for myself actually, and the Qubit Bloom, and that's really nice. It does some really strange things, but I don't think I'm going to be keeping hold of it again because I've got to keep on looking at the manual. I'm not sure where I've saved anything. It hasn't got such an intuitive user interface. I don't think. I've got the Turing machine as well. I was trying that to do some sort of randomness, but you can't save anything. So out of all the ones I've tested so far, the Black sequencer is by far my favourite and the most useful for me. Yeah, I can do some more experimental things on the Rene, but if I'm going to do that, I've got to make sure I'm in the right mood. I've read the manual, been on YouTube, took a refresher course, and I know what I'm doing, and then that's great. But this one, just no need to do that. It's really, really impressive. So I hope you found that useful, and if you did, maybe think about subscribing, and if you've already subscribed, or even if you haven't, maybe take a look at my Patreon page. It all helps to support the channel, and on there I've got over 6 hours worth of material that you can look at, teaching you how to use a synth module by module. Anyway, as I say, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and I'll see you next time.